My fiancée slept with 3 guys at her bachelorette party after I paid for everything. So I canceled the wedding and vanished from her life completely. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and for the longest time, I believed I was one of the lucky ones. I had a thriving freelance design business, a small but cozy home I'd just finished renovating, and a fiancé who used to look at me like I was her safe place. Danielle came into my life when I was 25, loud, spontaneous, the kind of woman who made everything feel cinematic. We met through mutual friends at a game night, and from the second she laughed at one of my awkward puns, I was gone. She told me early on that she found my calm energy grounding, that she'd dated too many chaotic men, and wanted someone who actually listened. Her words hit every insecurity I carried from past relationships. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't the life of the party, but she made me feel like that was finally a good thing. Danielle was the first person who celebrated my quiet wins. When I got my first major client, she brought home cupcakes. When I landed my biggest retainer contract, she cried happy tears and said, "I always knew you were going to make it." We moved in together 2 years later, into my place, and talked about starting fresh, new paint, shared grocery lists, even a couple's vision board pinned to the fridge. I still remember her tracing her finger along the house keys on my nightstand, whispering, "This is the beginning of forever." So when she said she wanted a long engagement to do it right, I didn't question it. I thought it meant she was taking us seriously. But looking back now, I see it so clearly, how she kept control without accountability, how she cloaked her hesitations in romantic language. I just didn't realize that while I was planning our future, she was already rehearsing the role she'd abandon. When we started planning the wedding, Danielle lit up like a chandelier. She had Pinterest boards dating back years, lace gowns, candlelit aisles, a violinist for the walk down. I wanted her to have it all. Not because I was trying to impress anyone, but because she told me this wedding was her fairy tale moment. So I stepped up. I'd been saving for a down payment on a new car, but instead, I rerouted every extra cent to deposits, bookings, and dress fittings. She said, "This is your way of showing me we're forever." I believed her. Her parents offered nothing, not a dollar. Apparently, her dad had cash flow issues from a failed startup, and her mom insisted we were modern and could handle it. Danielle shrugged it off, telling me she was used to her parents dropping the ball. But when I suggested we scale back, maybe do something smaller and more intimate, she pouted like I'd insulted her dreams. "It's one day," she said, "but it's the only day I'll ever be a bride." I swallowed my hesitation. I paid for the venue deposit, the caterer, the photographer, and even her Vera Wang dress, which cost more than my monthly rent. I kept spreadsheets, color-coded tabs, receipts in folders labeled Love Investments, like it was some sort of romantic ledger. The only thing she asked to handle herself was the bachelorette party. She said she and her girlfriends had it covered, and I didn't need to worry about that silly stuff. "You've done enough, babe. Let me have this one thing." And I did, because I thought love meant trust, and trust meant letting go. But sometimes letting go means watching everything you built crash from a distance. A few months out from the wedding, something shifted, subtle at first, but undeniable. Danielle started coming home later, brushing me off with vague excuses like, "just catching up with the girls," or "you wouldn't enjoy the vibe." She stopped asking me how my day was. Her affection, once so warm, so constant, turned mechanical, like she was checking a box instead of showing love. When I'd reach for her hand on the couch, she'd pull it back, pretending to scroll her phone. We stopped talking about the wedding. We stopped talking about everything, really. I brought it up gently one night as we were eating dinner. I said, "You feel far lately, like you're in the room but not here." She stared at me for a moment, then snapped, "I'm just stressed, okay? Not everything's about you." The sting of that hit deeper than I expected. I wasn't trying to pick a fight, I just missed her. So I dropped it. I told myself she was overwhelmed. Brides get like this, right? At least, that's what everyone says. Wedding stress, cold feet, just a phase. But even in the silence, I could feel the crack widening. She started sleeping facing the wall, her back turned to me, even when I reached for her under the covers. I'd wake up to find her already out of bed, already dressed, already gone. I used to believe relationships die loudly. Screaming matches, slammed doors, dramatic exits. But now I know they can die in quiet, breathless increments. One ignored kiss at a time, one cold dinner, one unread text. And still, I told myself, we were just going through a rough patch. Because when you've spent so much building a life, it's hard to admit it might be falling apart. Her bachelorette trip was planned with all the excitement she hadn't shown me in weeks. Miami, 5 girls, 3 nights. She called it the last hurrah before wifey life. When I asked if I could help book anything or at least cover part of it, she waved me off like a child asking too many questions. "This one's on us," she said. "You've done enough already. Let me just have my time with the girls." She packed her suitcase in a rush, humming to herself, smiling like I hadn't seen in weeks, just not at me. Before she left, I hugged her goodbye at the door, held her tight. I said, "Have fun, I love you." She paused. Her mouth twitched, like she was about to say something back, but instead, she kissed my cheek and said, "You too." I stood there, frozen, staring at the closed door, trying to pretend that wasn't the weirdest goodbye I'd ever received. That weekend, I tried to distract myself, worked on a client logo, went for a long drive, even visited my sister. But I couldn't shake the unease. She didn't call, not once. Texts were short, delayed, and vague. "Having fun. Talk later, X." I scrolled through her bridesmaids' Instagram stories like a detective, trying to spot Danielle in the blurry club videos and group pics. She was there, always holding a drink, always at the edge of the frame, laughing with her head thrown back, surrounded by people I didn't know. No red flags, but something about it all felt rehearsed, sanitized. Too curated, too careful. I kept telling myself I was just being insecure. That trust meant letting people live their lives, even when you're not part of the scene. But deep down, something in me had already cracked. I just hadn't admitted it yet, not even to myself. She got back from Miami late Sunday night, suitcase in one hand, phone in the other. Her eyes looked glazed, like she hadn't slept in days, but she was all smiles. "It was amazing," she said, hugging me too quickly. "I missed you." I wanted to believe her, but something in her tone felt practiced, like she was performing normal. She went straight to the shower without unpacking, and when I asked how the trip went, she just said, "You had to be there." The next morning, I got a message request on Instagram from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture, no name, just a message that said, "You deserve to know what happened at her bachelorette. She's not who you think she is." Attached were 2 blurry videos. My hands shook as I tapped them open. The first one showed Danielle at a club, clearly kissing some guy, hands all over each other, like they'd done this before. The second clip was even worse. She was sitting on someone's lap in a hotel room, drink in hand, looking directly into the camera before it cut off. My body went cold. I felt like I was underwater, like everything around me had lost sound. I replayed them over and over, hoping, begging, that I'd somehow gotten it wrong. When I confronted her that night, she barely blinked. "It was just dancing," she said, voice flat. "Clubs get crazy. People film dumb stuff." When I pushed, she turned it on me. "Why are you going through random DMs? Do you not trust me? You sound insane." Insane. That's what she called me. For catching her in a moment she didn't expect to be seen. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded. Because part of me already knew. The real betrayal wasn't just what she did. It was how easily she lied about it like it meant nothing at all. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those blurry videos replaying over and over. Danielle's laugh, the way her head tilted back, the way she didn't seem to care. I tried to convince myself it was one mistake, a drunken slip, but my gut screamed otherwise. By morning, I was digging. Not in anger, not in spite, but because I needed to know the full truth. I scoured social media, checked SnapMap, pieced together timelines from photos her friends had posted. I noticed inconsistencies. Club check-ins that didn't match her stories, tagged selfies with guys she never mentioned. Then I found her bridesmaid, drunk, venting in a group chat she thought I wasn't a part of. One short message. "Danielle hooked up with 3 different guys that night. I told her she'd regret it." My stomach dropped. 3, not 1, not 2, 3. I didn't want to believe it. I saved screenshots, recorded my screen, took every piece of digital evidence I could find. I replayed the clips, counted the interactions, traced every footstep in every picture. And each time I did, the world grew colder, sharper, heavier. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, she didn't just cheat, she planned to get away with it. The woman I had trusted completely, the one I had invested so much time, energy, and money into, had been performing a lie for months. All those late nights pretending to be stressed, all those smiles hiding a secret life. I wasn't angry yet, not fully. I was numb. A silent, cold certainty settling into my chest like a stone. I realized something then. I wasn't losing a fiancé. I was dodging a lifetime of betrayal. And in that moment I made a decision that would change everything. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I wore a mask of normalcy, smiling through meetings with florists, cake tastings, and dress fittings, all while my mind was screaming in silence. Every laugh I forced, every "yes, that looks perfect" I uttered, was a brick in a wall I was building between her and my peace. I made copies of every contract, every payment receipt, every email related to the wedding. I quietly took my name off joint accounts and began reversing vendor payments I could control, making sure the financial trail wouldn't tie me to her chaos. Inside, I was storming, but outside, I was calm, like the eye of a hurricane. I started documenting everything, not for revenge, but for proof, for myself. Every suspicious text, every half-hearted apology, every "I swear nothing happened," became a note in a private folder labeled "The Truth." I wasn't planning on yelling, crying, or throwing a scene. I wanted her to think everything was fine, to believe the wedding was still on. I even took her on a weekend getaway to relieve stress, smiling as she gushed about the trip. I let her think I was oblivious to everything she had done. All the while, I was calculating my exit strategy. When, where, and how I would vanish without giving her the satisfaction of confrontation. It wasn't easy pretending. Seeing her laugh with the guests, arranging centerpieces, picking flowers. It was a daily exercise in control. But the more I played the part, the clearer my path became. She had betrayed my trust, shattered my love, and yet I was the only one holding the power now. And I knew, one way or another, I would make this the last time she had control over me. Out of nowhere, she brought up a prenup. Except this wasn't your typical protect both parties agreement. She wanted me to sign something that guaranteed she'd get half of everything I had built, including my freelance business and any future earnings. At first, I laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke, but the look on her face, stone cold, almost calculating, told me it wasn't. Her mom had apparently suggested it, claiming it was just to be safe. Danielle said, "It's just a formality, babe. I don't want anything to go wrong. You're just, emotional about money." Emotional about money? After everything, that was the line she drew? I felt a twist in my stomach, the realization settling like ice. She didn't love me. She loved my stability, my income, my ability to provide a life she didn't have to earn. I held the prenup in my hands, pretending to read every word while my mind raced. I thought about the videos, the lies, the Miami trip, and every moment she'd spun herself as a victim. And then I smiled. Not for her, not because I forgave her, but because I finally understood. I didn't need to sign. I didn't need to justify myself. That moment shifted everything. The power dynamic reversed. I realized she wasn't in this for love. She was in this for security and control, and that meant I had the freedom to walk away. I tucked the prenup aside, unspoken, and began plotting the final steps to disappear. She wanted me to be complicit in her narrative. I wasn't going to play that part anymore, and just like that, the wedding she had meticulously planned began to unravel, without me ever saying a word. I wasn't the type to make a scene, but I also wasn't going to let her rewrite reality. I quietly compiled every piece of evidence I had, the videos, screenshots, call recordings, and thought about who needed to know. Her parents? Absolutely. Bridesmaids? Without a doubt. The maid of honor? She was already guilty by association. I sent everything anonymously, carefully packaging the truth so that it landed without giving away my hand. I didn't want revenge in the traditional sense. I just wanted transparency. When I imagined her family seeing the clips, hearing the recordings, I felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't satisfaction, it was validation. They deserved to know who she really was. Meanwhile, I made sure my exit plan was airtight. I reversed joint vendor payments, transferred my name off shared accounts, and even sold the honeymoon reservation I'd originally booked for both of us. Every step was deliberate, silent, invisible. I was vanishing, but leaving a trail that told the truth. I wrote her a final letter, brief and blunt, explaining nothing but stating everything. No apologies, no pleadings, just a cold, factual recounting of what I knew and what I would no longer tolerate. Then I put it aside. It felt like closing a chapter I'd been too scared to shut for months. The most surreal part? She had no idea. All her preparations, all her plans were crumbling quietly around her. And I was the only one who knew it before the world found out. For the first time in weeks, I felt control again. But the story wasn't over. The day of reckoning, the wedding itself, was still ahead. The day we were supposed to say I do arrived, but I wasn't there. Instead, I rented a cabin 400 miles away, left my phone off, and drank coffee on a porch that overlooked a foggy pine forest. The silence was intoxicating, almost sacred. For the first time in months, I felt no anxiety, no panic, no dread, just peace. Meanwhile, Danielle was at the venue, surrounded by family and friends who were waiting for a ceremony that would never happen. I imagined her panic when she realized I wasn't there. The whispered questions, the frantic calls, the confusion. Her texts flooded my inbox by the dozen. "Where are you? Please pick up. This isn't funny." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I watched her world unravel from a distance, each unanswered text a mirror of the betrayal she had orchestrated. Guests whispered, her bridesmaids exchanged horrified glances, and the photographer called me repeatedly, thinking it was a last-minute delay. She screamed, flailed, begged, and eventually the room fell silent, the weight of shock pressing down on everyone like a thick blanket. I wasn't gloating, I wasn't petty, I simply existed outside the chaos she created, untouched by the mess. That day, I realized the power of absence. Sometimes the loudest statement you can make isn't words, it's walking away. And as I sipped my coffee in the quiet, I let it sink in. She had no control over me anymore. No tantrum, no tears, no explanation could change that. But I also knew this was only the beginning of the fallout. I didn't check her Instagram or the wedding hashtags for days, but the updates found me anyway. Friends texting, mutual acquaintances spilling the chaos. Her parents had seen the evidence I sent, and their disappointment was brutal. Vendors were suing her for unpaid invoices, and friends who once gushed about the wedding slowly started ghosting her. I heard through the grapevine that she screamed, yelled, and cried in front of everyone at the venue. She blamed me, claiming I had abandoned her, that I was emotionally unstable, that the entire collapse was somehow my fault. People didn't believe her. Screenshots don't lie, and I had given them everything. She sent a few messages, pleading, desperate, "Please, can we talk? I swear I'll explain." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I realized something powerful. Silence can speak louder than any confrontation. Her life, meticulously planned, had crumbled. Her bachelorette secrets, her lies, the betrayals, all exposed. And while everyone around her scrambled to piece together the truth, I was quiet, detached, untouchable. The surreal part was watching people process her meltdown without me in the room. I didn't feel revenge, I felt relief, pure, unadulterated relief that I had removed myself from a life built on deceit. She was learning consequences in the most public, inescapable way possible. And yet, part of me ached, not for her, but for the life I thought we'd share. The plans, the dreams, the energy I invested, all vanished. But deep down, I knew this was better than facing a future built on lies. Even after all of it, the betrayal, the collapse, the relief, I found myself spiraling. I couldn't stop replaying every moment, every conversation, every decision I had made. Had I missed signs? Could I have prevented it? Should I have trusted differently? For weeks, I barely slept. My appetite disappeared, my energy drained, and even work felt meaningless. Friends tried to reassure me. "You dodged a bullet," they said. But it didn't feel like dodging a bullet. It felt like attending a funeral for a future that would never exist. I walked the streets at night, headphones on, music blaring, trying to drown out my own thoughts. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing in those Miami videos, that carefree smile, and I wanted to scream at the universe. Even my therapist said, "You need to grieve this loss. It's valid, even if it wasn't real love." The worst part? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the time, the energy, the hope I had invested, the trust I had given freely. I questioned my judgment, my worth, and even my ability to love again. And yet, amidst that despair, a tiny spark flickered. It whispered that I could survive this, that life didn't end at heartbreak, that maybe, just maybe, I could reclaim myself. But at that moment, lying awake in my dark apartment, I felt more alone and hollow than I ever had before. The pain wasn't just emotional, it was physical. My own heart felt like it had been ripped out, and the void left behind was deafening. I had hit rock bottom, and I had no idea how to climb back up. After weeks of numbness, I realized I couldn't stay buried in the wreckage of what should have been. I started small, morning runs through the park, cooking meals I actually enjoyed, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected. Every tiny victory felt like a lifeline. Finishing a client project without thinking of her, laughing at a stupid joke online, sleeping through the night without replaying the betrayal. I deleted mutual friends who whispered excuses for her behavior, who told me I was overreacting. I journaled nightly, not to remember her, but to remember myself, my voice, my boundaries. I began traveling alone, discovering cafes, streets, and neighborhoods where nobody knew my name, where I wasn't tied to her shadow. Even though I wasn't dating, I felt the stirrings of self-trust returning. I invested in myself, courses, therapy, hobbies I'd abandoned when I was busy planning our shared future. The walls of grief slowly started to crumble, brick by brick, as I claimed space for my own growth. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming dignity. It was realizing that my life didn't require validation from someone who had betrayed me. Each day, I felt a little stronger, a little lighter, a little more like the man I used to be, and better. And in that quiet, painstaking rebuilding, I discovered something I'd forgotten. Peace isn't given, it's fought for, it's earned. But just when I thought I could finally breathe, her presence, or rather, the remnants of it, came back in a way I hadn't expected. A year had passed since the wedding that never happened, and I had finally started feeling like myself again. Then came the letter. Handwritten, heavy with nostalgia, and unmistakably hers. I didn't open it immediately. I sat on my couch, turning it over in my hands, feeling the weight of every word I imagined inside. When I finally glanced at the first line, my stomach sank. I miss you. I know we were confused back then. She went on to say, maybe we can co-parent for the baby's sake. Maybe we can try again. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. A baby? A second chance? The audacity. I didn't reply, not a word. Instead, I scribbled 2 words on the envelope. Not mine. I sent it back unopened, my hand steady, my heart strangely calm. In the weeks that followed, I heard through mutual friends that she had moved back in with her mom and had yet to hold a stable job. The chaos she'd once tried to drag me into was now entirely hers. Karma wasn't loud, it was methodical, slow, inevitable. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only relief. Relief that I no longer carried the weight of someone else's lies. Relief that I had reclaimed my life. And for the first time in a long while, I felt untouchable. The chapter wasn't just closed, it was sealed. And yet, in that silence, I realized something profound. Disappearing had been my ultimate revenge. Most people think closure comes from confrontation, but I learned it comes from reclaiming your life. I vanished from the life she had tried to control, changed my number, moved to a smaller town, started over completely. No explanations, no calls, no last words, just a clean, deliberate break from everything that reminded me of her. I don't date much, but I'm learning to trust again, starting with myself. I built routines that centered on me, on growth, on peace. I work harder now, not for anyone else's validation, but because I want to. The pain that once felt permanent has become fuel. Fuel to push boundaries, to explore, to rebuild my identity outside of someone else's story. I was the man who worked himself to the bone for love, and got cheated for it. Now, I'm the man who built back every brick of his life. Stronger, smarter, freer. I bought a new apartment, painted it the colors I wanted, furnished it with pieces that make me happy. I travel solo, meet new people, laugh freely, and sleep without dread. Sometimes I hear things about Danielle, through friends, through social media, but it no longer matters. I don't feel anger, I don't feel revenge. I feel gratitude for the lessons, for the boundaries I finally enforced. I disappeared from her world, and in doing so I found my own. The freedom is quiet but profound. And in that silence I finally realized some of the best endings aren't confrontations, they're new beginnings. Today I wake up without dread, without fear, without the weight of someone else's lies pressing on my chest. I drink coffee on my porch, sunlight spilling across a home I bought and renovated with my own hands. I have friends who show up, a partner who listens, and peace I earned through fire. Danielle is just a name now, a shadow of someone I once trusted, someone I once loved blindly. Her actions no longer have power over my emotions. I can think of her without anger, without longing, without regret. Only the faint trace of lessons learned. I may never love that way again, but I will love better, wiser, freer. I've built boundaries I won't cross and standards I refuse to compromise. Every decision I make now is mine, untainted by manipulation or deceit. The freedom is subtle, almost invisible to the outside world. No dramatic confrontation, no viral moment, just quiet reclamation of self. And somehow, that makes it even sweeter. I look back sometimes, remembering the betrayal, the heartbreak, the sleepless nights, but instead of pain, I feel gratitude for the clarity, the growth, the strength I never thought I had. Because some endings aren't really endings, they're beginnings. And mine? Mine is filled with choice, with peace, and with life on my terms. For the first time, I feel truly untouchable. Because disappearing didn't take me away from life. It gave me back to myself,